Calling to order the May 18th, 2020 Menlo Park Planning Commission meeting. Before I call roll, let me talk a little bit about our virtual meetings, which we've had a number of up to this point. And in that, I want to say thank you to all the attendees tonight, the applicants, the public, the staff, the commissioners, everyone who is participating in this process and keeping the process going, which isn't an easy thing, and I think we've really managed to hold these things together, so thank you to the staff for that. Online meetings are difficult. In-person meetings are difficult as is when you're in the room, and it's more difficult when you're doing these online. Rest assured that as either someone giving comment, public comment, project-specific comment, or you're an applicant or an owner, we'll go through the process and let you know what's happening when to take some of the confusion out of the process. I do understand, and we do understand, that the visual cues that are normally present in an in-person meeting are not present in online, and we'll do our best to be granular about how the things work. My role in the process is as a traffic director, keeping the questioning going, calling for the votes, making sure the votes and the motions and the votes themselves, the results, are clear. Remind everyone that this is a public meeting. It does get transcribed, and for that reason, I'll do my best to direct the questions, identify the individuals talking, so that the transcription of it and the public recordation of it is clear later on for that process. We have on staff side Mr. Tapia, who will be talking to the mechanics and be managing much of the technical aspects of tonight's meeting. Let me introduce Mr. Tapia and ask if he has any guidance for anyone who's with us this evening.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. Again, good evening, everyone. This is just kind of a brief recap for those who are attending this meeting for the first time, just kind of a rundown of how we kind of operate in terms of the mechanics, as Chair Barnes was alluding to. So for those who are just joining us, the chair will be on the screen at all times. His microphone will be on at all times for everyone's benefit. And then just as a reminder for the commissioners, whenever you do have a comment or question during your period of speaking, we ask that you turn on your microphone and your camera, and then when you're done with your item, turn it off, both your camera and your microphone. And then those who are attending virtually, you do have an option to either phone in your comment verbally, or alternatively, you do have an option in your control panel, I believe. There's a question field where you can write in your question, and then a member of staff can read that question out loud. So again, for those who are attending virtually, there is a green hand icon on your screen, which you can then click on, and then that will notify staff that you have a comment or a question that you want to address during that public comment period. And then for those who are participating in terms of project applicants, owners, or other individuals who have an item related to tonight's agenda, a member of staff will either assign you the keys or the mouse keyboard controls during your item for the presentation period. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, just a quick reminder, if you're not on the screen, just please try to keep your microphone turned off and your camera turned off, because the screen can only support 6 cameras at once. So that should pretty much sum it up from staff's end. I'll turn it back to you, Chair Barnes.
Thank you. And I will proceed to call roll. The process for calling roll is I will call out each commissioner's name. When I call your name, please hit your video button. I'll see you, acknowledge you, and take you as being present. And then when I'm done, I'll recount the presence and the absence. Commissioner Tate.
Here.
Commissioner Tate is present. Good evening. Commissioner Doran.
I'm here.
Good evening, Commissioner Doran. Commissioner Riggs.
Present.
evening, Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Kale.
I'm here.
Commissioner Kale is present. Commissioner DeCarty. Commissioner DeCarty is present, and I, Barnes, am present. Let the record show that Commissioners Tate, Doran, Riggs, Kale, DeCarty, Barnes are present. And let me call for Commissioner Kennedy. Commissioner Kennedy. Commissioner Kennedy is absent, so let me repeat that. So present is Commissioner Tate, Doran, Riggs, Kale, DeCarty, Barnes. Absent is Commissioner Kennedy. Great, thank you. From there, we will go to reports and announcements. Ms. Sandmeyer, I'm assuming you're with us.
Good evening, Chair Barnes and Commissioners. Just a couple announcements. So tomorrow night, the City Council will be meeting again on the budget. And the Community Development Department, we're working on a system to accept electronic building applications. And so those would first come in as a pre-application, and then staff would review them, and then they would be accepted. So it's still a ways away, but we are making progress towards kind of getting back to accepting building permits. That concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Sandmeyer? Thank you. Seeing none, I will proceed to call for general public comment. And before I do that, let me check in with Mr. Tapia as to whether we have anyone currently in queue for that.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. So again, for those who have a comment at this time, there is a green hand icon on your screen, which you can click. So if you do have a comment or a question, feel free to click on that, and a member of staff will go ahead and notify the chair, which looks like we do have one, but I also briefly want to mention that there is a question field also in your control panel, which you can also utilize to type in your question if you would like a member of staff to read it instead. But as of right now, we do have one member of the public who does have their hand raised, Chair Barnes. So I will go ahead.
Let me do this.
Yes, go ahead.
Before I call for that, I will give the outlines of public comment and see who else comes in, and then I'll tap back into you for the queue that we currently have for it. Public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda and items listed under the consent calendar. Each speaker may address the Commission once on the public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. And what that means also is that if you are giving public comment on an item that is on the agenda, what we call an agendized item, for instance, this evening, F1, F2, or F3, at the time that that agenda item comes up, I'll call for public comment, and you have an opportunity to give public comment specific to that agenda item. If you are giving public comment on something which is not agendized, now is your time for that, for the general public comment. So with that in mind, let's check back in with Mr. Tapia and see that person still is in queue, and if so, let's announce them and welcome them and see what they have to say. So it's 3 minutes for public comment.
Okay, Chair Barnes, we do have a Pamela Jones. So Pamela Jones, again, as a reminder, if you can just please state your name, your address, or your political jurisdiction or organization. I will now go ahead and turn on your microphone. So you should be live now.
Good evening, and thank you for taking my comment. Pamela Jones, resident of Menlo Park in the Bellhaven neighborhood. Thank you, commissioners. My comment is in regards to an item that was on a previous agenda, May 4th, and I was unable to attend, and I'm just getting caught up. And this was the Facebook expansion update. And this is, my comment is specific to item 8.1.1, and that is the housing inventory and local supply study. I had contacted staff back in December regarding where this was in the process, because it was actually due in August of 2019. And I have made public comment at least once, I don't remember what meeting, but asking for the status of this report. So it is now in, was in the information you received at your previous meeting. And so looking at, it's page 6 of 11, 8.1.1, it looks like the report has been submitted to the city to understand the proposed framework of the report, and the final report is anticipated to be provided to the city in the near future. I have a concern that whatever the report is, it'll be sanitized, and I would like to request that the Planning Commission consider requesting the raw report, all of the data that was collected, the information that was collected prior to it being sanitized. And in this time of COVID-19 and people losing their jobs and who knows what's going on with mortgages and rents, it is critical to know who at least was living here in 2018, 2019 when the report was done. So thank you very much. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Here I am. Okay, my hand is lowered.
Okay, Chair Burns, so at this moment, I don't see any other hands raised for a public comment, and I don't see any questions either.
Thank you. Seeing no hands raised and no other indications of public comment, I will now proceed to close public comment and proceed to item E on tonight's agenda, and that is the consent calendar. As far as procedurally speaking, when we get to the vote on that, I will again call each commissioner's name, and please indicate with a thumbs up or thumbs down your vote on adopting. And with that, I'll look for either a motion to adopt or pull and any revisions. Commissioner DeCarty.
I'll move that the consent calendar is adopted as submitted.
We have a first from DeCarty. Commissioner Riggs.
I'll make the second.
We have a first from DeCarty, a second from Riggs. I'll proceed to call in the same order that I did for roll call. Please indicate your vote. Commissioner Tate.
I'm sorry, for some reason my camera takes a long time. Yes.
Commissioner Tate votes to adopt. Commissioner Doran. Commissioner Doran votes to approve. Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Riggs is affirmative. Commissioner Kale. Commissioner Kale is affirmative. Commissioner DeCarty. Commissioner DeCarty is affirmative. Barnes is affirmative as well. Let the record show that Commissioners Tate, Doran, Riggs, Kale, DeCarty, and Barnes all vote to approve, with Commissioner Kennedy being absent. Thank you. So with that, we will now proceed to the F portion of tonight's hearing. This is the public hearing portion. The first item on this evening's agenda is a use permit for 930 Hermosa Way. This is a request for a use permit to demolish an existing one-story single-family residence, 2 detached accessory buildings, and a detached garage, and construct a new 2-story residence and detached accessory dwelling unit on a substandard lot with regard to lot width in the RE Residential Estate Zoning District. And with that, I will turn to Mr. Pruder, our staff member for this evening. Good evening, Mr. Pruder.
Good evening, Chair Barnes and Commissioners. I'd like to let you know there are no announcements for this project, but I am available for any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And looking to my fellow commissioners, any questions for Shaq? Mr. DeCardi. Voice. Mike.
I apologize. You think I'd have that down by now. I thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. We really appreciate you joining us in these circumstances. Mr. Pruder, my question for you for clarification is, if the lot for this property were 1.65 feet wider, would we be having this presentation and discussion this evening?
To answer your question, no, we would not. It would not be requiring a use permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions to staff? Seeing none, we will proceed to move to the applicant. Actually, before I do that, let me call out the steps that we go through in a public hearing so everyone can create a mental map of what the process is. So what I did right then was I asked staff for any changes or updates to the staff report. We had none. Commissioners asked any clarifying questions, as did Mr. DeCardi. From there, we will proceed to the applicant's project presentation. During this time, if an owner wishes to speak, this is the time for the owner to speak. This is their opportunity as part of the applicant team to do that. As a note, this is generally the time to say what you're going to say about the project. After that, responses or input from the applicant team is generally limited to questions from the commissioners. After the presentation, we'll go back to my fellow commissioners for any clarifying questions related to the presentation. I'll then look to public comment on this agenda item. I'll then bring it back up to the commissioners to the virtual dais for further discussion, and then move to a motion of some sort on this project. So with that, being at step 3 in the process, I'll look to the applicant. I'll say good evening, welcome, and please tell us a little bit about your project. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for your time during this hearing. My name is Rajiv, and this is my wife, Ruchi. We are the homeowners at 930 Hermosa. We're both born and raised in the Bay Area, with our extended families living in the area as well. We currently live in Menlo Park on Stanford Avenue, and we've lived here for 15 years, so we're very familiar with the neighborhood and the community. We have 2 boys aged 8 and 10. Ruchi is in the real estate industry, and I'm in the software industry. Now, our desire in building this proposed home is really to create a space for our family that's consistent with how we would use the space inside and outside. We were really drawn to Hermosa Way by the serenity of the area and the space that it would provide for our kids to play outdoors. And what we want to do is to build a home that contributes to the quality of the neighborhood and is something that all of our neighbors can be proud of as well. And working with our architect to design the house, we wanted to maximize preservation of the heritage trees on the property, as well as privacy for the neighbors. There are 13 heritage trees on the property, and our design maintains and preserves all of these trees. And from a privacy perspective, we really considered privacy upfront in our design. Both the downstairs and upstairs are oriented towards the backyard, and we've taken several additional design steps to maximize the neighbors' privacy. And then lastly, we did speak with all of the neighbors prior to submitting our permit application, with the exception of one of those neighbors whose house is for sale and is vacant. We also corresponded with all of these neighbors via email, and copies of our correspondence has been included in the staff report. And as you can see, our architects, Jim Malixi and Gary, also of Menlo Park, are on the call in case there are any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know if you guys want us to do a little description of the project or what you guys are looking for there.
Yes, that would be appreciated.
Okay. So we are proposing, as mentioned earlier, a new residence on a substandard lot with respect to width in the RE zoning area. We're proposing a new 2-story residence and detached accessory dwelling unit. The lot is approximately 21,780 square feet. And the new proposed residence will be 6,955.2 square feet with a 798.4 square foot accessory dwelling unit. And we're designing this. We're basically, it's sort of a French modern design. It'll be integral stucco exterior, as well as aluminum clad exterior windows with wood windows on the interior, and the windows will be fully divided with spacers between them. We have other elements such as a metal trellis at the front of the house and other elements at the rear to modulate the elevations. We will have a standing seam metal roof with this one, and again, the influence is kind of a French modern influences. I think they've mentioned the landscaping. We are trying to emphasize the large evergreen trees in the rear, and the landscape has also accentuated the livability and owner appreciation of the site. So I think anything else, we can answer any additional questions you might have.
Thank you. Before I reach back out to the commissioners for any clarifying questions, would that in effect sum up your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. So with that, I'll look to my fellow commissioners for any clarifying questions related to the presentation. Commissioner Kale.
Thank you. I have two architectural questions. The first one I saw somewhere, I think it was in the staff report, that the windows would be inset. I didn't see that on the drawings, but is that the case? And if so, how much are they inset?
Yeah, I mean, this is an architectural detail. It's not exactly, I mean, it's something that will be articulated in the details. But since it's a stucco exterior and we do not have any pronounced wood or trim on the sides, so what we're planning to do is wrap the stucco back into the window. So that's what we mean by recess, but it probably, since it's a 2x6 wall, probably 1.5 to 2 inch inset.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second question, I'm not sure if it's exactly a question, but I was going to ask if you could talk through a little bit this. The front elevation is really great, but as you turn around on the left side, it feels like not so much attention has been paid to the left side, with a 2-story stucco wall with the windows laid out the way that they are. And this wall is going to be fairly visible because this house is set farther forward than the neighbor, and there's a driveway. So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about any thoughts on the appearance of the left wall.
Yeah, I think, Jim, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think we were thinking because it's only about a 10-foot, it's a 10-foot setback or 10-foot 3 setback we have there on the side. And we pretty much wanted to maximize the second floor addition on it. We were thinking that the landscaping will probably cover most of it because of the privacy issue with the neighbors. So we were thinking of maybe planting some trees there anyways. The windows are all going to be recessed in, so that's a nice feature with the stone sills. I think is what we're proposing here. And the windows are nice and aluminum clad. It's probably going to be bronze anodized color. With matching color of the roof, which is also a bronze color, and the stucco is integral color stucco, so it will have that appearance of that kind of like an old world kind of a European kind of old style kind of a wall, kind of almost kind of like a limestone kind of an appearance, basically, is what we're thinking. So the texture of the wall and the windows, I think might probably, that's all we're thinking of on that side. There's really no place for trellises or awnings that we can put in there. It's just going to crowd the sides anyway. So maybe landscaping is what we're thinking of, softening it, using landscape will be to soften that side somehow.
So is that landscape along the property line then?
Landscape will be, we have a landscape plan. Gary, do you want to show do you have a landscape plan with you somehow?
Yeah, so what do we got?
Yeah, there's several hedges and trees on that side of the wall, and there's also a large tree in front. If you look at the site plan, there's a Douglas fir that's huge. Douglas fir. It's a 39-inch diameter Douglas fir that will definitely soften that. I mean, basically covering that corner.
Okay. So I guess. So let me just rephrase the question a bit. Was there any thought on creating some architectural interest on the left side with some offsets or something?
We didn't because we you know, our clients really like to have the maximum size of the bedroom, and that's why we didn't do that anymore. We can soften it by adding some trellis work. I mean, if that's something that that is, you know, we can continue that the metal awning trellises maybe around the corner to soften that corner somehow.
I think our feeling also was the neighbor's driveway is what immediately borders, and so that creates essentially additional distance from their residence to the left side of our property, or left side of the proposed house.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would say if you'd like to consider some continuing the awning on the side, that would be great, but I would not make that a requirement. So thank you for your answer.
You're welcome, Larry. Yeah.
Are there any other clarifying questions related to the applicant's presentation? Seeing none, I will call for public comment on this item, and I'll turn to Mr. Tapia to indicate whether there is anyone in queue.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. So again, for those who are attending the meeting and have a comment or question regarding this specific item, again, on your screen, you should have a green hand icon. And if you go ahead and click on that icon, that will notify a member of staff that you do have a comment or question, and we will go ahead and turn on your microphone. Or alternatively, there is a question field in your control panel, which you can use to type in a question, which then a member of staff can read aloud for you. So again, just feel free to click on that green hand icon to notify staff you do have a question. And I don't see any at this moment, Chair Barnes.
Thank you. So with that, I will close public comment for this item, bring it back up to the virtual dais, and open it up to commissioner comments. Commissioner Doran.
You know, I'd just like to say, I think it's very handsome design. I think it's very consistent with the neighborhood. I like the architecture. I especially appreciate that it's sort of restrained and that you resisted the urge to have gables on gables and differing roof lines, you know, just for the fun of it. So I think it's kind of refreshing compared to some of the architecture that we see. And I think it's eminently supportable in its present form, and I'm prepared to do that.
Thank you. Commissioner Kale.
Thank you. So I would also second Commissioner Doran in saying that it's a nice design. As I mentioned, I would like to see something a little more interesting on the left side, but overall, I think it's a nice project for the street, and I appreciate the inset windows. I also appreciate the outreach that the owners did with the neighbors. That was very nice to see. So I'll make a motion to approve the application as proposed in the staff report.
Thank you. We have a first from Kale. Commissioner Riggs.
Yes, good evening. I also think that this is an overall handsome project, certainly grand, without excess. I like the comment from my fellow commissioner, Michael Doran. I did have one question for the architects. I was just curious about that right rear chimney. It seems a bit oddly proportioned. Were you trying to avoid something there?
Looking at the elevation, are you looking at the elevation?
Yeah.
Yeah, the right elevation shows it on the right, for example.
Right.
The chimney in the rear patio, the outdoor fireplace.
Yeah.
I believe that that is attached, however, to a one-story structure. Am I right?
Are you talking about the outdoor fireplace, the one on the porch, the covered porch, or are you talking about the family room fireplace? There's two of them on that side.
Right, and one of them is notably shorter than the other. And is the short one attached to a first-story wing of the project?
Yes, yes. It's only a one-story wing there. There's really no two-story, and it's an outdoor fireplace.
Right, understood. But it has still has the full scale. In fact, as fireplaces go, I'd say it's quite a grand scale, more than the typical 5 foot under 3 foot. So I was just wondering, proportionately, was there something you were trying to achieve to make such a short chimney on that grand fireplace?
We're basically just design it, you know, like something with the restriction of if you are to build like a wood burning fireplace, which is about 2 feet up above the roof, and this is basically what it is. So the only thing that we can do here is remove the, you know, that little chimney that butts up and just continue that wide wall going all the way up. But it's use the same. We cannot possibly raise it higher than that because it's just going to look really weird to have a really tall chimney on a one-story house, on a one-story wing.
Oh, well, I don't think having it be more than 18 inches above the roof would be at all odd. But I'm wondering, with the shoulders of the fireplace, is there a reason why they're so high?
No, it's not a shoulder, it's a wall. It's a wall unit, but the fireplace really is not that high. It's basically that wall is where the TV is going to go, above the fireplace.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah, yeah. So basically it's a wall partition where the TV is going to go on top of it.
All right, well, I must say I find it odd. It's not my fireplace. So I will make a second to Mr. Kale's motion to approve the project.
Thank you. We have a first from Commissioner Kale, a second from Commissioner Riggs, and let the record show that Mr. Maliksi was responding to Mr. Riggs's comments about the fireplace. So with that, with a first from Kale, a second from Riggs to approve the project per the staff report, I will now proceed to take a vote. And with that, I will call each commissioner's name in the order that I have been calling them. And please indicate by an up or down your vote, starting with Commissioner Tate. Commissioner Tate is a yes. Affirmative. Commissioner Doran.
Yes.
Doran votes to approve. Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Riggs votes in the affirmative. Commissioner Kale.
Yes.
Commissioner Kale votes yes. Commissioner DeCardi. Commissioner DeCardi votes yes, and Commissioner Barnes votes yes. Let the record show that Commissioners Tate, Doran, Riggs, Kale, DeCardi, and Barnes all voting yes. Commissioner Kennedy is absent. The motion carries. The approval carries. Congratulations. You're approved.
Thank you very
so
much,
much.
commissioners.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. And from there, we will progress to item F2 on this evening's agenda. This is the use permit for 441 Gilbert Avenue. Request for a use permit to demolish an existing one-story single-family residence and detached garage and construct a new two-story residence with an attached garage on a substandard lot with regard to minimum lot width and area in the R1U, single-family urban residential district. And with that, on this agenda item, we have Mr. Turner. And I'll look to you, Mr. Turner, for any updates to the staff report. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Barnes and Commissioners. I do not have anything to add to the staff report at this time.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners related to the staff report? Seeing none, I will now proceed to look to the applicant to tell us a little bit about their project.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. We just wanted to give a quick background on this project. So we are proposing a home approximately 2,385 square feet on a 6,157 square foot lot. And we are proposing a home that is traditional. We feel that the traditional home will fit nicely into the neighborhood. Our main objectives on this home were to, one, have it, work with the neighborhood compatibility, and two, for privacy for the neighbors. We have done some extensive outreach with the neighborhood, and we have received several concerns, which we worked really hard with the neighbors and with staff to alleviate all those concerns. Wanted to point some of those out here. So most of the concerns were around privacy. So we did several things. One, we raised our window sills on the sides of the home to 6 feet. We also decreased the height of the home. We reduced the first floor plate height to 9, so we're at 9 to 9. And we also added some privacy plantings in the rear, all around the rear of the property and the rear sides as well. We also had some concern about the character of the home. So we did work really hard to make sure that the character of the home, the traditional style, we feel really fits well into this neighborhood. And And then there was also a concern about the rear neighbor based on how their driveway approaches our fencing and how the fencing might block their driveway. So we did pull our fencing back to alleviate the safety concerns around that. Yeah, so we feel that the home is going to fit nicely into the neighborhood.
Thank you. Anything else you wish to add related to your presentation? No. Thank you. At this point, I'll look to my fellow commissioners for any clarifying questions related to the project, the presentation, some of the alleviations of neighbors' concerns. Commissioner Kale.
Thank you. I had 3 questions. The first 2 are kind of straightforward. The kind of a standard question I have, I see that there's going to be fiber cement siding with painted corner boards. Just curious, will those be painted to match the rest of the house, or are those going to be painted an accent color, the corner boards?
Most likely they will be painted white. So we were thinking of a gray body color with white trim.
Okay. All right. Second question is, I noticed the windows and the front door are fiberglass. I would just ask if there is any thought to making those wood windows, which I think would fit the neighborhood well.
So we prefer to do fiberglass just for the durability, but we don't have designed any grids, so we don't have any concerns about SDL versus GBG. There are no grids on these windows, but we do feel that the fiberglass is of high quality, and so we would prefer to use the fiberglass windows. There are wood windows, but they're actually fiberglass on the exterior and wood on the interior. As far as the look from the outside, it doesn't change anything unless you go to all wood, but we do prefer the fiberglass windows, if possible. Okay. Those.
Okay, and the third question. So looking at the front elevation, it generally looks really nice. I'm concerned a little bit about the bedroom 2 that's over the garage, the proportions of that, how it's really close to the laundry room, creating a tight little narrow space. The eaves are almost touching, and the fact that the front wall of that bedroom's in the same plane as the garage, it gives it some odd proportions. So to me, it kind of looks like it's an addition to a house, but of course it's a new house. Have there been any discussions or thoughts about either connecting that space somehow so it's part of the laundry layout, or pushing it back from the face of the garage so that the lower roof can continue through and make it work with the proportions, kind of a little bit like the way the rear elevation works with the nice proportion layouts of those different masses. What was your thought process on, I guess, bedroom 2 specifically?
We liked kind of breaking up the front of the home as far as the design goes. We didn't see it like it was an addition. And we liked the front detail on that front window as well. Yeah.
Is that that's not a full walkout bay, right? That's just a sitting bay?
Yeah, that's just really a detail. It's not it's not like a deck or anything. Let me go to the plan. Yeah, it's just a little pop out there for the window.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Any other commissioner questions for the applicant before I call for public comment? Seeing no other commissioner questions at this time, I will call for public comment on this item. And look to Mr. Tapia to tell me if we've got anyone in queue.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. So just a quick reminder for those who have a comment or a question on this item, there is a green hand icon on your screen, which you could use to click on, which will notify staff that you have a comment or question. Or alternatively, you do have a question field on your control panel, which you could utilize to type in a question so staff can read it aloud. And at this time, it looks like we do have 2 comments. Make it 3 comments, actually. So we have 2 hands that are raised, so that signifies that the individuals would like to speak, and then we have 1 written comment, which we could read aloud as well. So I guess I will go with the first one that was initiated. So that would be Jordan McDonald. Again, if you can just please state your name, your address, or your political jurisdiction, or your organization. Just as a reminder, you do have 3 minutes. So Jordan McDonald, your microphone is now live.
Yep, this is Jordan McDonald, and I live at 311 Nova Lane, which is one of the adjacent neighbors to the property in question. And thank you for commissioners for hearing my comments. I do want to point out that Cynthia and team have been responsive, and they have adjusted several details on the house to ensure privacy. As this will be a 2-story house and our house is a single story and we spend a lot of time in the backyard, that was very important to us. So I do want to say thank you to them for making those changes. The planting plan I've had a chance to look at, and there are screening trees there. My only comment is the desire that those would be of a size that within 2 to 3 years, they would provide adequate privacy. Not knowing what size that should be, but within a reasonable time frame that they do grow tall enough to shield our backyard, as we do spend a lot of time back there. And that's all that I wanted to voice.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair Barnes, I guess I'll go ahead and read the question that was written in at this time. So I'll try to read it verbatim at this time. So Larry and Lauren Scott at 495 Gilbert Avenue. No question, but want to take this chance to thank the developer for hearing our safety concern about the driveways and visibility. The changes made seem reasonable and help to alleviate our concern. So that's the comment that was written in by Larry and Lauren Scott at 495 Gilbert Avenue.
Thank you.
And then looks like we do have another comment from Charlene Prince Berkland. Sorry if I butchered that. So again, if you can just please state your name, address, political jurisdiction, or organization. Just as a reminder, you do have 3 minutes to speak. So Charlene, your microphone is now on.
Hi there. This is Charlene Prince Berkland, and we live at 350 Barton Way. And I will say thank you to the development team. They did, I reached out to them, but after my initial outreach to them, I did not hear back in terms of our initial conversation. I will say that we are still very opposed to a 2-story home being built at 441 Gilbert. We are still very concerned about privacy because it still has the potential to be in our backyard. And as our neighbors behind us said at 311, we use our backyard, particularly now, as an extension of our home. We are out there every day. And so we are very concerned still about privacy. We are incredibly concerned about sightlines. Our master bedroom, we just remodeled in 2015. We added on to our home after living here for, it took 10 years for us to remodel. From our backyard window, our master bedroom, where, we spend our time working now. That's where our home office is. It took 5 years for our shrubs to grow, so we didn't have to see the roof line at 441 Gilbert. And now we don't see the roof line. Now we see the beautiful palm tree that's on Gilbert and Nova. We will not see that palm tree when we look out that window anymore. We will see the back of a 2-story home. We will just see a house. So it just ruins our sight lines. We also understand that a two-story home would match the characteristics of the Willows in general, because there are two-story homes on Gilbert. However, if you look at our particular area at 350 Barton Way, our neighbors on Gilbert and our neighbors on Nova, except for the cul-de-sac on Nova, the rest of the homes are single-story ranchers. And I particularly feel sorry for our neighbors at 311 Nova, because you have two homes going up on either side that will be 2 stories. So there's great concern that it's changing the flavor and the characteristics of our neighborhood. When we remodeled, Esther Bugnia, who owned 441 Gilbert, she came over and she told us how much she appreciated that when we remodeled, we kept our home to the style of the neighborhood and didn't alter it. It was respectful. And so, you know, we would just appreciate having a 1-story home there that would maintain that flavor of our neighborhood. But we are definitely still opposed to a 2-story home at 441 Nova, or Gilbert, 441 Gilbert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chair Barnes, I'm not seeing any additional comments or questions at this time.
Thank you. So seeing no additional hands, virtual hands raised or comments submitted, I will proceed now to close public comment and bring it back up to the dais for commissioner discussion. Commissioner Kale.
Thank you. So this is it's a permitted use. 2-story house is permitted here. So it's I think our job as the planning commission to get the best 2-story house that we can. Some of the positives are that it looks like a nice design from the 2 visible streets, from Gilbert and also from Nova, with the exception that I noted earlier. It looks like the address to privacy, at least to the neighbor to the left, was done with some landscaping and and raising the windowsills. And I realized we had to deal with a flood elevation too. Also appreciate the ceiling heights were kept to reasonable for a new house, 10 feet on the first floor and 9 feet on the second floor. Some of the drawbacks, I think, are I think the neighborhood could support the quality of a wood window. That would be just my preference. Also, my preference would be that the corner boards were painted to match the house. I think it looks a little more like a custom house when we see that look. In my opinion. And the biggest part for me is I just think that the bedroom number 2, the proportions of that just need a closer look. I don't think that's enough by itself for me to vote a denial. But I'm going to just voice my opinion that I wish that some more thought was given to that bedroom and the proportions. And one other comment is that the eaves look a little, I'm not sure how deep those are, maybe a foot. Sort of this style house could use some deeper eaves as well. I'll leave it to someone else to make a motion to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCardi.
I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate, relative to other conversations we've had about projects, the outreach to neighbors, and hearing that at least from some of the neighbors, they feel like they've been heard and had good dialogue. I think that's important. It reinforces for me a point that Chair Barnes has made previously about us having a more clear and systematic expectation about what that outreach looks like, but appreciate your efforts to make that happen. I like the way that Commissioner Kale framed his opening to his input about the permitted use for a 2-story house and having the best 2-story house possible. My addition or encouragement is, with the comments that we've heard, the public comments, is to address the interest of the neighbor on Nova about the screening that will reach a level of maturity quickly. And if you might comment on that or agree to that. And then appreciating the comment of the neighbor whose view is now going to be of a partial house, 2-story, 2nd story, as opposed to a traditional view. And it sounds like you haven't had as much exchange in that. Considerations about what you may be able to do to soften the look may not be a palm tree or sky, but perhaps not to look as much at the house. Those feel important considerations in this mix. And likewise, I'll leave it to others to make a motion.
And Commissioner DeCardi, were you looking for applicant response to some of your thoughts or questions?
I'd certainly like it to be considered. If the applicant has a short response on either one or both of those, that would be great, but it doesn't need to be extensive.
Yeah, I'll look to the applicant at their discretion.
Yeah, so we do have privacy plantings around the entire rear and left rear side of the lot. Those plants are showing as 15-gallon, and they are going to be grown to estimated 20 to 30 feet in height when fully grown. And then I just also wanted to respond regarding the trim. The trim colors are not finalized, so I made a note here, and we're completely open to having the trim the same color as the body.
Through the chair, if I could have a quick follow-up.
Yes, please.
I appreciate the comment on the screening. So how long until they get to be 20 to 30 feet high, and the 15-gallon, how tall will they be, and what kind of screening will they provide initially?
I don't know the answer to how long until they are 20 to 30 feet. I have to do a little bit more investigation on that.
I can jump in on that. So right now, the 15-gallon will reach
please,
20 to...
For the record, just please say your name.
Hi. Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Chelsea Bright. I am the development coordinator for Thomas James Homes. In regards to the Carolina Cherry Laurel, right now with the 15-gallon, it will reach that in 5 years. We could install either a 24-inch box or a 36-inch box, so it'll reach maturity faster.
Thank you for the clarification.
Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Riggs? Mike? Mike?
Are we on?
Good evening.
All right, sorry about that. Question for Ms. Bright, if I may.
Sure.
So they're indicated cherry laurel trees. Are by any chance, is this Eugenia?
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay. I'm glad to hear that. The Eugenia don't quit growing. And you say that you would be amenable to planting. I mean, you're indicating 13 trees, which is quite a few. I mean, essentially, that's a tree hedge. What would you say in design terms, landscape design terms, to making 3 or 4 of those, the 24-gallon, in order to sort of get a boost at the primary spaces?
That would be perfectly fine, because as it is, we kind of tried to estimate what would be the best amount of spacing to provide screening and not create this big wall of just greenery and shrubbery. So we would definitely be amenable to figuring out which ones we can do 24, whether we should space them out apart and take out some of those trees and just make them bigger.
Yeah, spacing out is probably a great idea. I would leave that up to you. It's not as if Thomas James has not done a project before. So I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the project with the upsizing of at least 4 trees to be proposed by the developer for effective landscape screening to the neighbor house. And I believe that was the only public comment. And then I appreciate your consideration of painting out the corner boards. I personally think that will make for a more attractive house. And if you don't feel otherwise and don't mind, I'll include that in the motion as well. So a motion to approve a use permit with those 2 modifications.
We have a first from Commissioner Riggs with those modifications. Commissioner Riggs, could you repeat the second one? Second modification or
It was
condition?
painting the corner boards to match the siding rather than the trim.
Commissioner Doran.
I'll second that motion.
We have a first from Commissioner Riggs and a second from Commissioner Doran. So I have a clarifying question, and I will disclose I have a personal relationship with the social relationship with the occupants at 311 and the individual who gave public comment, Mr. McDonald. I don't, however, feel that that will otherwise influence my decision making on this project. So let me go back to the planning plan and appreciate your upsizing of the PCs, this Carolina. When you contemplate doing an upsizing of these, is that with the understanding that the upsizing would take place primarily as it borders between the subject property and the neighbor to the left, or do you also see a need to upsize on the back as well? What are your thoughts on that?
I would take it as upsizing on both fence lines, just to have consideration for both neighbors as well as the neighbor that's diagonal to our property. It might help with the sightline a little bit.
Okay. So as I look at the number of trees currently contemplated, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and we confirm that with what you have in your landscaping plan. That's 13 as well. Okay, so I am going to look to Commissioner Riggs, and given that there's a first and a second, and the condition on the that's presented on the first, where you had explicitly called out up to 4, and I'd ask that you not put a max on that, but I'd ask you consider modifying that with a language of a minimum of 8 as it relates to the upsizing of the trees.
Through the chair, if I could ask Ms. Bright, Ms. Tebow, if that sounds appropriate. Can you do 8 upsized?
Yes, because that way we could play around with the number of trees that are currently there. Maybe we can decrease some and space them out and have the same level or quality of screening that we were hoping for.
In that case, I would indeed make that at least 8. And I would also ask, given the balancing you're suggesting, which makes sense, that you submit that for approval to our staff, meaning to Chris.
Will do.
All right, thank you.
Great. So we have a first with the condition of a minimum of 8 24-inch box trees, with the objective of having the screening, appropriate screening for that. So it may take you to whatever number it is. Staff will review that and decide on that and approve that. And then we have the painting the quarter boards the same size, same color as the exterior of the house. Without any further comment, I will call for a vote. Seeing no other further comment, I'll read the commissioner names in order. Commissioner Tate. Commissioner Tate is a yes. Commissioner Doran.
Yes.
Commissioner Doran is a yes. Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Riggs is a yes. Commissioner Kale.
Quick question, who seconded the motion?
We've got a first from Riggs and a second from Doran.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kale is a yes. Commissioner DeCarty. Commissioner DeCarty is a yes. Commissioner Barnes is a yes. Let the record show that the project is approved per the staff report with the 2 conditions as articulated, with a vote of yes by Commissioners Tate, Doran, Riggs, Kale, DeCarty, Barnes. That's unanimous of the commissioners present. Commissioner Kennedy is not. Thank you. Congratulations. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
That takes us to item F3 on this evening's agenda. This is the final item of this evening, and this is in relation to a public right-of-way and public utility easement abandonment at 100 to 110 Terminal Avenue. General plan consistency review for the proposed abandonment of public right-of-way and public utility easements adjacent to and within 100 to 110 Terminal Avenue. And for this, we have Ms. Help me with the pronunciation, Alvidian.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Teresa Avedian.
Avedian, good evening.
Good evening. I'm a senior civil engineer. I don't have anything in addition to what's in the staff report. However, I would just like to note that this is the second step in the 3-step abandonment process. The first step was the adoption of the resolution of intent to abandon by City Council, and that occurred on March 10th. And this second step is a general plan conformance. The third step would be a resolution abandoning the right-of-way, which is scheduled for City Council on June 23rd. And I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the abandonment.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear on the process, normally we'd go through a process which, like we did in the public hearing, which is asking for questions on the staff report, and then coming back, having you do a presentation, and then asking for comments to that, doing public comment, and then bringing it back up to dais for a vote. Ms. Sandemeyer, is that the same process we're going to go through on this agenda item?
Yeah, that's correct. So as you noted, in the end, the commission will take a vote on a determination to forward to City Council.
Right, and that's a determination that the vacation of the public right-of-way and public utility easements adjacent to and within 100 to 110 Permanent Avenue is consistent with the general plan. So with that, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if there's any clarifying questions related to the staff report. For Ms. Aberdeen. Commissioner Kale.
Thank you. I do have one question.
Yes, please.
About looking at the last document, which is a photo or a satellite view. I'm just curious about how the existing buildings and the pool were allowed to be built over this right away before it was abandoned.
Commissioner Kale. Hi. So I don't have an answer for you. The buildings were constructed in the 1970s, and they were constructed right over the right of way, as you can see. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Seeing no other commissioners with questions related to the staff report, I will now move to ask you, Ms. Aberdeen, if you have any other, if you have a presentation for this evening or what other details on the project.
I don't have a presentation. I will note that the Planning Commission was scheduled to see a study session on the new Belhaven Community Center and Library project last week, but it was postponed to a future date. I don't believe that date has been scheduled yet. I also want to note that the abandonment would happen independently, regardless of this project going forward or not. As I noted in the staff report, the right of way to be abandoned is a paper street, so it was issued on the map but never used as a public street. So it's really at this point a cleanup item. There are buildings on top of it which are not technically allowed. You can't have a building over a property line. So really we're looking at this as a cleanup item, regardless of whether or not the project would go forward.
Thank you. I'll call for any clarifying questions from the commissioners, and then I'll move to public comment. Seeing no other comments from commissioners, I will now call for public comment on this item F3, the last agenda item on tonight's agenda. Mr. Doran, you have Mr. Tapia.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. So just as another quick reminder for those who are just joining us for this item, you do have a green hand icon on your screen, which you can click on, which will then notify a member of staff that you do have a comment or question at this time. Alternatively, there is a question field in your control panel, which you could use to type in a question, and a member of staff will go ahead and read that aloud. So at this moment, I'm not seeing anything, but if you'd like, Chair Barnes, we can give it a couple seconds or so.
Okay. Seeing no hands raised and no public comment, I will proceed now to close public comment on this item and bring it back up to the dais for commissioner discussion. Commissioner Doran.
So I think the horse is done bolted the barn on this one. There was never a street built here. It's been built over with buildings for many, many years. This looks like a formality to me. We're just recognizing facts on the ground. So I'd like to move to recommend to the City Council that they approve this.
Thank you. We have a first from Commissioner Doran to approve per the staff report that the it is in fact consistent with the general plan. Commissioner Riggs?
Yes, after much thought, I have come to agree with Commissioner Doran, and I will second the motion.
After tremendous contemplative review, Commissioner Riggs seconds. Looking for any other commissioner comments before I call for a vote on this item? Seeing no other commissioner comments, I will proceed to call for a vote, and that vote will be in the order that we have used this evening. Commissioner Tate. You could use a voice as well. There you are. Commissioner Tate is affirmative. Commissioner Doran.
I'm a yes.
Commissioner Doran is affirmative. Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Riggs is affirmative. Commissioner Kale. Commissioner Kale is affirmative. Commissioner DeCarty. Commissioner DeCarty is affirmative. In voting for Commissioner Barnes, what do you think, Bugs? Up or down? It's an up. Commissioner Barnes is affirmative. That makes it unanimous of the commissioners present. Let the record show that it's Commissioners Tate, Doran, Riggs, Kale, DeCarty, and Barnes, with Commissioner Kennedy as being absent. So with that, we conclude the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda, and we'll go back to staff for H1, informational items. Ms. Sandmeyer.
Yeah, so the next meeting will be on June 8th. We haven't finalized the agenda yet, but it looks like one project will be 870 Santa Cruz, which would be an architectural control project for a renovation, and then we'll likely have 2 single-family homes that will be going forward. That concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Sandmeyer? Commissioner Riggs.
Mr. Chair, I do not have a question for Ms. Sandemeyer, but I do have one. I have a suggestion to, well, a suggestion to Ms. Sandemeyer and the chair. Last week, we heard from the Facebook representative, perhaps it was a slip of the tongue, but we heard that the Dunbarton Rail project, for which they have been kind enough to fund studies, was no longer high on their agenda as it was found to simply be too expensive, I think was the phrase. I wondered if we could agendize a discussion of the Dunbarton Rail issue, if that's appropriate.
Certainly, I mean, yes, in that I think the clear message was, I don't know if he used the word "to," but the representatives from Facebook certainly indicated that it was, expensive, and other references they made to having some time to go over the findings, review the process, come back with ideas, certainly indicated that it certainly wasn't the highest priority on their list. I'm curious with Ms. Sandmeyer, in terms of the purview of this commission, bringing it back, where would we fit it?
That's an interesting question. I think it might be best if I check in kind of with planning management tomorrow and then email the commission, if that would be all right.
I mean, would we be able to, well, the DA, we voted and passed on the DA. Let me go to Commissioner Riggs. Commissioner Riggs, you have an additional thought on this?
Yes, I thought it might help to clarify. A number of commissioners have expressed concern over the last 4 years about having sufficient transit to support the projects that we approve. I, for one, put a lot of hope into this potential source of transit that would address possibly the tipping point of our transit issue, which has been the automobile bridge over the Dunbarton. So I do believe that this would, the future of this Dunbarton Rail project, I believe, does color our future discussions on any commercial projects in the Bayfront area, so that it would be highly informative, if nothing else, to have a better sense of where this much anticipated project is and whether its likelihood of success has been notably diminished lately. So that's my rationale.
Mm-hmm. And it was noted in the last time this came up, I think it was last meeting, that the individual, Winsome Bowen, I think is the individual's name, was not present for our discussion. And I'm assuming that any of this discussion relies on having someone representing, whether it's Facebook or Plenary Group, or, I mean, those are the big two, and then Samtrans to a lesser extent, talking to this issue. So, yeah, in that context, that Commissioner Riggs does lay out, which is, oh, by the way, our comfort level with discussing these and approving these projects has rested to some extent in Mr. Riggs's mind around the alleviation through regional measures like this. In a sense, can we get an update on what's happening with that? So that's where, and I certainly would welcome that discussion.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate the clarification on the concerns. I think I would want to just talk to the management staff to figure out how we would format it and what, who we would be able to bring to the meeting. But I definitely understand the concern and will follow up.
Thank you. Looking to any other commissioners for any comments before I close? Seeing none, with that, I will call to an end to this meeting at 8:24 p.m. Thank you for everyone who was in attendance. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you to staff.
Good night. Good night, Mr. Riggs. Thanks, staff. Bye-bye.